And welcome back. This is your man Warrior, and this is another patron roster review. This is Fargo Stormleaper from Bad GN. He's been playing since the beginning, and he is free to play. This is what you can acquire when playing for over a year and a half and not spending any money. So take a look at this roster. Pretty impressive. Now, wants to kind of know the top characters to farm for the heroic AAT, so we'll talk about that. I'll give you the characters that I feel like you should be focused on. You said you almost got General Kenobi, and you said, check out my B2. Yeah, you've been listening. Your B2 is Gear 11, looks awesome. B2 definitely is going to help you in the Galactic War and from time to time in Arena for sure. You also said you're focused on farming Baze and Chirrut and Shore. Those are kind of your three top characters that are really hard to farm, but you're gearing them because you've unlocked them. And those are definitely three characters that used to not be free-to-play friendly that you now have access to. And so gearing them up, that's excellent. You're also working on your clones, your Phoenix squad for Thrawn, not a bad idea, by the way, because Phoenix is just a good team overall, as well as the ability to unlock Thrawn is huge. I'm using Thrawn every day. He's extremely fun, both in the raids, both raids, Phase 3 of the Heroic AAT, and I'm using Thrawn in the Rancor. He guarantees I get my solo, as well as he's great in Arena. I use him in Arena, so I'm using him pretty much everywhere in the game right now. And then, of course, you're working on your Ewoks because of the Ewok Faction Pass. Now, I would tell you probably to back down on the Ewok Faction Pass just a little bit. I know you're probably scared that some really cool characters coming in and it might require them because some silly YouTuber named Warrior told you that is a possibility. And while that's a possibility, I would say you have so much to focus on as free to play. As long as you have those characters unlocked and at 5 stars and maybe like Gear 6, I think that's about all you really would want to do. You can worry about whether you need to gear them up a little higher or not when the time comes, but I was just theorizing the possibility. I don't know if that's the case or not. I'd like to be wrong in this scenario, but I could be right. But let's go ahead and go through it. You want to know about, those basic farms, making sure you're on track, who to Zeta next, your Arena team, kind of who's the better Arena team in ships. So we're going to jump right into Arena. First, for Arena, what I'm seeing here is a good team, a really good team, but if you want to get into the top 100, this is my suggestion. Looking at your roster, you have a ton of really cool characters, only a few Gear 11. This, it takes a long time to get these guys to Gear 11, but one of them that you worked all the way up to Gear 11 is none other than Rex, and Rex is the #1 leader in the game. So since you have him completely maxed out, it does make sense to put him in. And I know a reservation is, ooh, if I pull out my wedge lead, I'm going to lose all of my offense. I mean, that's kind of the deal with him, right? Well, yes and no. You do lose a little bit of offensive capability, but Rex brings in so much more speed capability for your team, speeding your team up, that it really does offset that. Also looking at who you have, I noticed down here you have a Gear 10 Baze Malbus and a Gear 8 Chirrut Imwe. You're only 3 pieces away from being at Gear 9, and Chirrut 6-star Gear 9 is viable with Baze in Arena, no joke. So definitely would want you to focus on those two. And the other thing is I see a Gear 10 5-star Darth Nihilus. Like, what? Just chilling right there in the middle, not being utilized in Arena. So crazy. So I would do a Rex lead, Chirrut, Baze, Darth Nihilus, and then add one more character to this mix. That could be your B2, so you could cut through teams. It could be your Emperor Palpatine, if you wanted, your shock and things like that. And since you're in the top 150, you might not have as many Chirrut and Bazes to go against. And with that said, your Emperor Palpatine may be more effective. Or you could choose to use Boba, and that would be the lean-to. I would actually say that would be the one I would go to, is Boba Fett. He's Gear 11. You got to kill him twice, so it's kind of like you're bringing 6 characters into the fight, because Boba Fett's got to be killed twice. And he's got his Execute, which is great, especially if you get into that top 100 and you start running into lots of Chirrut and Bazes. You're going to start finding that it's really, really difficult to finish them off without Boba Fett. And so Rex lead, Chirrut, Baze, Darth Nihilus, and Boba Fett for the win. But if you decide you really don't want to let go of your Wedge and Biggs because you spent a lot of time getting them to Gear 10 and they're fun, you could always do a Rex lead, Wedge Biggs, and Chirrut and Baze. So do those 5. It gives you an almost all rebel team with Chirrut and Baze. Now you're going to say, well, you've pulled out B2 out of my team and you told me to work on B2. Yes, B2 is a substitute. What I mean by that is he's the guy that occasionally you're going to run into a team you just can't pass because they have like a General Kenobi and a Royal Guard, or a General Kenobi and a Shore Trooper, or whatever, and they're going to have dual tanks. And when you see dual tanks, that's when you pull B2 out, and especially when you're running through the Galactic War. Now, for your first Zeta, the first lean-to I would have would be Darth Vader, and that's because that is probably the best solid Zeta you could ever do in the game is Darth Vader. He'll help you in the Heroic AAT, he'll help you in Rancor. You can even use him in the arena as a leader. Once you have his Zeta, it does make him that much better, and so Darth Vader would be my kind of my number one go-to as a potential if raids and arena and stuff like that is a possibility. Now I have another one, so don't get all excited yet. Darth Vader's great. I've got 4 options for you. Another option would be Qui-Gon Jinn to help you with Phase 1 in the AAT raid as a leader, and you could use him in Arena, specifically once you unlock General Kenobi and get him geared up, but Qui-Gon Jinn has a great leadership ability. Another is Darth Nihilus' unique Wound in the Force. Doesn't sound like a huge unique ability, but if you start using him in Arena, watching the opposing team debuff themselves with health down constantly every time they take a turn not only makes your team way more effective, but keeps their team easier to beat with the health down, and it also makes Darth Nihilus' Annihilate work much, much faster. So definitely his unique would be up there in the options for the characters you have. But the number one option that I would do for a Zeta would be your Cody, and that is because you are working on your clones for Heroic AAT, and your clones are getting there. You've got a gear 10, you've got a gear 11, you're getting close, you've got them all ready to go almost, and you could do Ghost Company Commander, his leadership ability, Zeta this bad boy. It's going to be amazing. This is the team that you need to get to at least gear 10, and you want to get Cody's speed way up, and then also get Princess Leia put in here, and you're going to be able to run clones in Phase 2 or Phase 4. Phase 4 really would be where I would have it, because it's easiest to catch Phase 4 of the raid, especially if they're, you know, running fast, if your team blasts through it. But catch it, you can do a lot of damage with them in there. And so this would be my number one if raids are most important to you. Otherwise, if arena is important, I would lean more towards Darth Vader or Darth Nihilus, and Qui-Gon Jinn is probably kind of a runner-up behind all of these guys. Now, after looking at all of your characters and all of your teams, there are a few characters that kind of pop up as characters you're going to want to farm for the Heroic AAT. So instead of going through all the teams, I'm just going to go through who I see you need to continue to develop. Number 1. At 5-star, Gear 8, he's not ready for anything in the Heroic AAT yet, but you will not regret it. Ezra Bridger is the best of the Phoenix, the best the Phoenix has to offer. He's an amazing powerhouse. You can use him with Jedi or the Rebels, which makes him very durable in being utilized with Rebels in Phase 2, or you could use it if you do clones in Phase 2, you could use Rebels in Phase 4, but he'll go with the Rebel teams. He could also be utilized in Phase 1 with the Jedi, and he can definitely take that damage to the next level. I did just mention clones and possibly Zetaing Cody, and if you're going to do that, then I would recommend obviously putting Echo, Sergeant, Cody into those 3 specifically into your favorites and finishing gearing them, get them up, because those guys are going to need to be at least gear 10 for you to start doing some significant damage in the Heroic AAT. Another character that I see that you should definitely develop for Heroic AAT is going to be none other than Chief Chirpa. Also, there's an Ewok faction pass, so it's not going to hurt you. You did mention that you're farming your Ewoks anyway when we talked, and so if you were going to farm Ewoks, this would be the one Ewok I would focus on. I wouldn't focus on necessarily all of them, because you're getting them 5 stars, and that's sufficient. But Chief Chirpa is the one I would focus on most. He's usable in the Heroic Raid Phase 3, and so that's the direction I would go with these guys if you really want to hyper focus. For your Rebel squad, you have a lot of characters you could use if you were doing a Rebel squad for Phase 2. Since your Chirrut and Baze are not available, and Princess Leia very well may go away to another team. Same with Stormtrooper Han. That leaves you with Wedge, Biggs, Admiral Akbar, Lando, and you need one other 7-star character for the tank in phase 2 if you were going to use rebels in phase 2, and I would recommend none other than, that's right, Han Solo. Not only is he naturally fast, but he's a natural heavy damage dealer. He could be utilized in the rebels if you're using rebels for phase 2 or 4. He can put critical chance up to ensure in phase 4 that none of your characters die, but in phase 2 he can put critical chance up, making sure your rebels do that much more damage. He can, if you use his abilities right, do a triple attack where basically he gives himself enough turn meter after using Never Tell Me the Odds for Deadeye. Deadeye then gives him turn meter for Quick Draw, and then Quick Draw goes off. So this is a really cool character with high damage output. A lot of people don't get to use him, and when you level him up and gear him up and use him, you'll realize there are some certain areas in the game you still get to use him and have fun with him. It's a shame to earn him as a raid specific character and then never get to use him. And he is a scoundrel, so you can take him into all of the scoundrel events, and there are a plethora of those in the game, so that would be another fun character. Also, I see you have a 6-star Gear 6 R2-D2. R2-D2, one of the best light side characters in the game. You will not regret getting him up. You could easily use him as a substitution inside a Galactic War, light side battles to get you through the hardest nodes available, as well as Arena if you're doing light side. He makes every light side team much more durable. Now, you did mention you already know that you need to level up Shore Trooper, and I do recommend it at 3 stars. He's still extremely viable. He's going to have the same amount of protection at 3 stars as he does 7 stars. Excellent character, and you have him at Gear 6 or 7. Go ahead and, yes, Gear 7, I believe. Go ahead and continue to develop him, that you know you're developing him. He's going to help you with any of those Empire events that come around. You will potentially need to get his node unlocked and slow farm him, because you're going to have to eventually get him to 7 stars. And if you need help on that, remember you can always borrow a hero, and you've got many, many light side characters that should get you through. If you're having trouble with that node, and that is more important than anything, putting your Zeta on your Qui-Gon Jinn could be the difference between winning and losing in that 9B node, because with a Zeta Qui-Gon Jinn and then borrowing a General Kenobi, bringing in the rest of your squad, Rebels or Jedis, you should be able to zip right through that 9B. The last character I would have you focus on is none other than Thrawn. You've got a 5-star Thrawn, pretty amazing. You unlocked him. There's many players in the game that do not have access to him, and they now have to wait probably 4 months or longer to have a second crack at him, and you got him at 5 stars. He is viable everywhere but raids at 5 stars, and he is super fun. And so my suggestion is, you know that you're going to continue to work on Phoenix enough to get him 7 stars the next time around, and so from now until then you should be slow farming him, his gear, to make sure that by the time you get him to 7 stars, he's arena ready and ready for the AAT tank raid and the Rancor raid. And so if you want to utilize him, you're going to have him geared. If you don't touch him until the next time around in 4 months and then gear him up, what's going to happen is you're going to have a character 7 stars Gear 1 that you can't use, and then he's going to become your #1 priority. And as a free-to-play individual, you're going to struggle trying to get him up fast. So it's going to take time. Give yourself a couple months for him, 2 to 3 months, passively gear him up. He's a bad gear, but not nearly as bad as some of the other characters in the game. So just take your time over the next 3 months. Lastly, for ships, you're doing well as far as your team composition goes. You know, for Scimitar and Darth Maul, you definitely want to farm both of them to make sure you continue to make them stronger, because the Scimitar and Darth Maul are both squishy characters, and you definitely want to make this ship more powerful. The Imperial TIE Fighter and the TIE Fighter Pilot, again, your pilot and your ship you're going to want to farm. You don't have either one of the TIE Fighters in here, and so the Imperial TIE Fighter and the First Order TIE Fighter, just try to continue to farm those 2 characters. Not only are they both really good light side characters and usable in the raids, but their ships are, the 2 TIE Fighters are definitely 2 huge powerhouses of ships. And then finish the existing ships you're using, like Big, Slave One, and Baran, things like that. So definitely get those characters up. Otherwise, from your current fleet arrangement, the way that you have it, it looks fine, but definitely if I was going to make a substitution, I'd put the Imperial TIE Fighter in for Wedge for now, but I think your Wedge is probably significantly stronger, so that might be a bad move until you can get him leveled up more. So top 3 ships, other than the existing ships, continuing to farm them and level them and gear them, I would focus on is gearing specifically your scimitar, leveling your scimitar up, I mean star-wise, leveling the Imperial TIE Fighter and the First Order TIE Fighter ships, and then of course those characters continue to slow farm them, you know, continue to put gear pieces in when you unlock those gear pieces. So what do you think, Fargo, about the suggestions I've given you? Make sure you know that all these suggestions are taken with a grain of salt. They're just my opinions, but I want to make sure that I help you out. You are free to play, so any questions that you have, you do have access to me on Discord and our private Discord chat, so make sure that you hit me up if you have any questions about who to farm your Zeta, if you're leaning towards one or the other, and some of the top characters that I told you to farm. As always, make sure you keep your gaming on. Warrior out.